to do. I love to just make people feel they're most powerful, because when they do feel like that, they tap into their gifts without the doubt. They tap into it without the worry. They tap into it without the wonders of like, is there space for me? They just do it, and phenomenal things come out of that. And I've seen it in my life, and I still, battle with doubt sometimes and just wondering, is this enough? And am I enough? But when God is like ready for me to be, pushed or propelled, he stops at nothing to make sure that I see like, oh, these are the fruits, like these are the fruits. This could happen. This is the impact that can happen when you actually decide to, believe in your voice and believe in your abilities. So I'm still very much learning what that means, but this has just been a result. And I'm grateful to be here to even speak about the journey before I, quote unquote, make it to the top,
What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. And today we got Bronx in the building, but it's Bronx, Brooklyn, LA. But we're broadcasting live from New York. I'm so grateful to have my sister, your sister, our sister, Miss Erica Knox. What's going on, sis?
Hi, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here today.
Yeah. There's something about energy. And when I say energy, especially in these times that we've lived in, this is a green field. So, but I think in this public health moment that we've been in, I think people now appreciate energy more.
Yes.
Having the energy to wake up in the morning, having the energy to just actually have the will to do something with your life, the will to connect in relationship, the will to actually try to resolve the open questions of your life, the will to actually have the courage to face some of the things you've navigated in your own life, some of the challenges in your relationships, your families, your things. That takes energy. And when I learned about your work and your story, right, we're all still writing. So we're all young. We're still all writing our story. I just felt a sense of energy off of the posts, off of the thing. It just felt like this was somebody who was just like, I want to bring people together. I want people to find, and I want to create a space for people to find who God has created them to be. I want to be a conduit and a facilitator of opportunity so that God's deposit in them could be released and it could be planted and could be sowed. Planting is a word that you use very intentionally, that I want people to be planted. I want those seeds to bear. But I say that it takes energy, and I think it's a gift for people to have the type of energy that you have. And so when I think about the work with Move in Meraki, Move with Passion, when I think about all of the things that you're part of, I'm excited because I think we need more people to both model energy, which will bring up a question of where's your source, but two, more people who are just actually excited about helping people at scale and creating spaces at scale. So clearly I can't do your story justice, and you could truly do that. But who is Miss Erica Knox?
Erica is a multifaceted woman. I'm a mentor to many. I'm a mentor to my little sister first, of course. I'm a connector naturally, just connecting people to themselves, to opportunities, and to other great people in this world. I'm also a communicator, a strong communicator. I actually got my degree in strategic communication. And so that's something I value, and the power of doing so in this world through every global sphere, literally. But most of all, I'm a woman of God. I love God. That is my best friend. And he's revealed so many areas of my life where I needed him, and I still do every day. And so those are just a little bits and pieces of me and the layers of me.
When did you first experience that there were no space for your gifts?
When did I experience that there were no? I don't think I've ever experienced that there was no space. I feel like I felt like that before. I felt doubt in moments, thinking that I have this big dream and no one can understand it, or this big idea or this big movement in my head that no one can understand. But I feel like along the journey, God has always revealed to me like, hey, your gifts are going to make room for you, like physically, mentally, emotionally. They make room for me in my mind. When I limit myself, they push me forward. Like, hey, you have this dream and you can't deny it. And you want people to feel this energy. You want people to feel this motivation. You want them to move. you can't deny that. And then physically, I would say because he's opened doors that I could have never gotten myself through, that my story would never, like, if you were reading a book, it would never be like, oh, okay, of course she ends up there, because, that's just a part of the story. Like, so I feel like never, ever. And that's something that I try to get people to see, that like we have things and gifts within us that God literally will say, like, if no one else understands it, me and you do, and let's make it happen. Let's push forward. So it can be daunting at first, but never have I ever, ended at that result that there was no space for this gift that I have.
It's helpful to say that, because I asked that for a reason, particularly because you did start by saying that there was doubt, and then God brought you along a path to reveal those things.
Yes.
How did God reveal those things? Can you tell about an instance when, you just that kind of like, this doesn't make any sense, right? God, this doesn't make any sense. How am I here?
Yeah, I would say every detour of my life has showed me, that he's going to make space for me, from just growing up in Inglewood, California, and then moving to New York, and then moving to South Carolina, and then moving back. I've never been just a student in class. I've always been like the top student. I've always been the top something, just someone who wants to do, more than enough, always wants to be outstanding. And I never understood why. I used to kind of try to dim that light. And then as I grew closer to God, especially I grew up in, like, I can't even say the church, but like you said, that culture of church. My mother is a God-fearing woman, and my stepfather was a pastor after, his beginning life. And so I've always been connected to God, but I finally got my own relationship with God, I feel like, in college. I always prayed to God. I always knew that he was protecting me. But it was really like when I lost my mother in 2018, when I kind of was like, oh, okay, like, he's speaking to me right now. And even though I've just lost one of the biggest pieces of my life, God is still speaking to me. He's still showing me that in the midst of tragedy, I still have something for you to do on this earth. And so I would say in that way, he kind of revealed to me, like, hey, I got your back even in the lowest of lows. And so in that moment, I actually started a campaign at Morgan State University, which is where I graduated from. And I ran for Miss Junior. I was a sophomore at the time. And the campaign actually started the first day, the day that I lost my mother. So on March 19th, that was the first day of the campaign. I had told my mother that I was going to run. We weren't like as close in that moment because I was in a crossroad between purpose and popularity. Purpose and popularity, I would say.
Break that down.
Yes, absolutely. So coming into college, like I said, growing up, I was like an A-B student, but always top of the class. So I found pleasure in doing that. But when I came to college, I kind of had like less responsibility. So growing up, I made sure that I helped take care of my siblings. That was the kind of house that I grew up in, especially with my older sister being our second caretaker. I always saw her as like a second mother. And so when I got to college, I was like, responsibilities, like I'm tired of it. I want to be free. I don't want to work two jobs. Like I just want to be. And that is what, part of my life became. And I also realized that a part of that was not really me just wanting to have fun, but it was a cry out for help. It was a cry out because I was going through depression. It was a cry out because I was facing just things that I could never understand in my life. And so I would say in those moments, that was a crossroad for me. I knew that I had a deep purpose. I knew that I was a motivational speaker from high school, from middle school. I knew that I could tell someone something and that they would be moved. But on the other end, I also knew that I was having a great time. And at that crossroad, I was like, I want more for myself. I don't want to be known as the girl that can just like have a good time. Like I can do that. Don't get me wrong, all day. But I always get my work done. I always show up as someone who is a phenomenal woman. So I was like, I want to shift my story a little bit. And I felt God pushing me there because I had participated in a pageant and they revealed to me like, oh, you're a powerful speaker. And I was like, wow, okay, God, I can speak. Okay. And then after that, he revealed like, yeah, and your words actually, mean things to people. They inspire people. So in that crossroad of losing my mother, he kind of just showed me that my campaign was called Blaze Through. And I was like, I don't know where that came from. Honestly, I found the quote, blaze your own trail in one of my notebooks. And I was like, that's my campaign. That's the only thing I resonate with because I'm at a crossroad. So things just look unfamiliar. And in that moment, I just ran that race. And I told everyone that I could see on my campus to blaze through, because I knew that God had kept me. Like, I knew that there's no reason why I'm still on this earth. Me and my 4 siblings, there's just no reason why I'm here besides the power and the grace of God. So in that moment, he revealed my gifts and my calling in like one of the most horrible times in my life. But that's how he did it, you know, in that moment.
This is you first, just thank you for sharing that. And there's nothing perhaps heavier than anyone can imagine losing a loved one so close, right? And having that happen so early in your life, right, is destabilizing, to say the least, right? And this is for even people knowing a little bit about your story. But when you say reveal, was it the fact that God was giving you opportunities, like this campaign was happening, this pageant was happening, and through those opportunities, you were realizing that, wow, I'm good at this, I'm being validated. So you took that as God revealing, or was there another part of God revealing where it was just a sense, like, break down for somebody who doesn't know, when people say God reveal, what does that mean?
Yeah. I think he just revealed to me, like, it was like a second chance, like, because the thing is, those 2 things are like man-made, you know, the pageant and the other pageant that I did of becoming Miss Junior, like those races were man-made, but they were like God moves. I feel like they were moves where he was like positioning me to see myself in a different light, to give myself a second chance, and to reveal that, you know, the legacy doesn't end with my sister. It begins with her, well, my brother and my sister, but I'm continuing to pass that torch. I'm having that torch in my hands. So I would say the revelation was just me still having energy. Like, I was like my most confident. I was my most energetic, most motivated. Like, I was just going for it. I hadn't seen myself move in purpose and move so quickly. And I just knew that it was God, because no one in this world could have had that energy after losing their mother. Like, whether you were close to her or you were not, I just knew that he was showing me, like, hey, you got stuff to do. And I chose you. And I was like, and at first I'm like, I have to do it for my mom. And so, you know, in that moment, that's kind of what pushed me, because my mom was a phenomenal speaker. She was a phenomenal writer. And I was like, no way. God just said, here are the gifts that she had. Here, you know, and in a different way, of course, because we all have different ones that are unique. I was like, wow, like, no way it's me. And so those were the urges that I felt like in my spirit to just do it, just to be more. And I let him guide me. I had no idea what was going on. I was just like, so I can articulate it now, but at first I was just like, none of us know.
None of us know while it's going on. The reason why I'm over here with the energy off it is because how you articulated where you were, what you were navigating. Like, I was still high performing and academically, but I just wasn't the narrative that was being created, or that I was putting out there about myself. I did not like. Right. I felt there was more to me. So in some sense, I felt to some degree, some element of lost or out of balance. But once I found purpose, or I found seeing these other areas of things that I didn't know about myself or gifts I had, it drew me there. And I think like the magnet accelerates, because both there's something external drawing it, and then there's something in it pulling. And so you had my gifts. Wow, I like this. Wow. And they're affirming it. And that's happening because I think, in this time, this is why I love your story, is because I say there's an energy, but I also think that there's a generational invitation for all of us. And I think in the time of social media, and the time where there's a lot of people think that the antidote to perhaps people reflecting not necessarily the most positive story of themselves online or on social media, but sometimes under that is that they don't know who they are. They don't know their purpose. And that's the excitement that I see about that. And so do you see kind of from that moment now of like, okay, wow. All right, God, you've given me this gift. My siblings and I have survived. You've given me energy in a place that would take anybody out, right? How do you then crescendo in the in-between, right? So now how do you get to this place of saying, well, I'm also a connector. So did that kind of spur you? Like, when did you realize that God also had gifted you to be a gatherer as well?
I would say This year is when I got to reflect on it, because a lot of the time between the last 3 years was just like survival mode and just pushing myself to new limits because I had seen one limit being pushed in that moment. So after, that being Miss Junior and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I can be confident and speak life into people. I can speak life into situations. I can do that. But things didn't just like automatically change, things didn't just change automatically. Like my character was slowly changing, and in the spirit it was changed, but my flesh and my trauma and my healing physically had to catch up. So after that, I would say, kind of the crescendo happened the following year. I became Miss Morgan, and these are just monumental times in my life. I don't think they define me, but they did reveal things about my character that I feel like God positioned me to be revealed. And so being Miss Morgan is the official ambassador of the school, the university, 8,000 students. So at any point, anybody could ask me anything about my school and why I love it and why they should keep on going in life and in their career and their personal life, like all of that. I became someone who people could depend on for that motivation, the energy. And I love that so much. And so that's kind of when it kind of revealed that to me as well. And then after that, I just realized, like, outside of my positions, that's just my character. Outside of my positions, I've always been one to bring people together. And it doesn't have to be crowds because I've never been like that kind of person, but just to, one person at a time, like, hey, you're amazing, right? Like, hey, I see something in you. Like some of my friends, kind of call me crazy because they'll do one thing and I'm like, you will be a phenomenal producer. I think you should start a business with that. Like, that's just always been me. So I think I just began to see the pattern and I was like, well, now that I know these things, I can't just sit on them. I want to act on them. I want to grow them because clearly I wasn't fond of my old lifestyle or the ways that I was living. And of course, immaturity plays a part, being young, always the youngest in my class as well. I'm actually 22, but graduated at 21 and I had just turned 21. So that's like also a factor. But beyond that, I realized like, that's just something that I love to do. I love to just make people feel they're most powerful because when they do feel like that, they tap into their gifts without the doubt. They tap into it without the worry. They tap into it without the wonders of like, is there space for me? They just do it and phenomenal things come out of that. And I've seen it in my life and I still, battle with doubt sometimes and just wondering, is this enough? And am I enough? But when God is like ready for me to be, pushed or propelled, he stops at nothing to make sure that I see like, oh, these are the fruits, like these are the fruits. This could happen. This is the impact that can happen when you actually decide to, believe in your voice and believe in your abilities. So I'm still very much learning what that means, but this has just been a result. And I'm grateful to be here to even speak about the journey before I, quote unquote, make it to the top. I don't think there is any like limit, but, I like to talk about the journey before I win again. I had this thing that I just released called Project Pass the Baton. And I said win again because I feel like I'm on a race of life and I'm not running or anything. Really, we're jogging. If we were honest, the pace is grace, and I'm passing the baton at every chance that I get just because you just never know, one, when your last day is here, but also why not give people the tools that I needed desperately, that I needed in a moment. And maybe I learned the hard way. Like, why not do that? I just feel like it's in my nature. And my siblings may play a role in that. Having an older sister and a little sister, I've been able to be one, that conduit of communication between them two, but also just understanding that my sister worked so hard so that we could have the life that we have. And I'm going to do the same thing for my little sister so she can see the possibilities. Like, even if she takes a totally different path, just so that she can see like, hey, we're pushing new limits. This is not, our story doesn't end with the trauma and the upbringing that we've had. So
I want to touch a little bit more on that because there's a saying that you speak to people in the language that you desire. The love language. If you're acts of service, you give acts of service, your words of affirmation, your word of affirmation.
Absolutely.
When you talk about just kind of your upbringing, did you feel for you part of the burning platform or part of your desire to speak life, to speak affirmation was a sense that perhaps from the places that you most wanted it, you didn't necessarily get that affirmation that you're good, you're great, you're that, or, is that some part of the journey for you?
That's very interesting. I've actually never really like dipped in that area, but I would definitely say subconsciously, yes. So I grew up without my father in my life. So I did have my stepfather, but after studying fatherlessness for so long, that is definitely a part of it. And I know that it's played a role in a sense, because although I had lots of accolades, there was a point in my life where I was like, okay, accolades aside, I think it was really COVID-19 and the pandemic, and when that shifted 2 months before graduation, like in that moment where I realized that you can serve and you can be in position and still not feel worthy, still not feel like you're enough. And so a lot of my learning and my healing has just been understanding what things have subconsciously played a role. And that very well has played a role. Just not having a father figure to validate those things. So maybe that was a part of me seeking accolades and making sure that I was at the top of my class. And I know that, scientifically that is true, but physically and literally in my life, I know that played a role. So that's something that I try to be mindful of, so that I'm like, hey, why do you want this? What are your motivations behind this? What intentions do you want to set in achieving something and doing something? Because that can very well be. But in my household, we grew up in a very loving household, but it was also a result of survival. Of having my mother who raised us, but who was very young when she raised us, and having her lose both of her parents at a very young age. So that cycle has continued. And though we may not have been able to pinpoint what exactly, plays a role in the way we respond to things, I have so many friends in social work, and I studied psychology when I first got to college. I know that these things have an effect on us, and have an effect on the way we communicate and receive love. So I wouldn't put it past my story to say that may have been a role, but Jesus, that all things work for the good of those who love him, because even so, in learning about my healing and stuff, a lot of the things that I didn't have or felt like I lacked in, I was able to give so effortlessly, like love. That's something that was the love that's in the Bible, being kind and patient and not boastful. Those aren't the things that I grew up seeing. That wasn't the definition of love. Love was a result of survival. Love was a result of family, but it wasn't always that perfect love that we received from God. So those things definitely have impacted me in a way, and just impacted the way I show up and why I show up for that reason.
I appreciate you sharing, even going on that journey. You kind of talk about family of origin, and issues of how much that is anchored.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people obviously it's a scary thing, because no one wants to feel like I don't have control, or these things control me. Yeah. And it's information for us. But when I talk about information, though, there's something about what information that you feel that God has placed on you to get out. Right. You always hear, for anybody who's listening, for those who are listening and watching, in the Bible, God would give messages to prophets, and prophets used to have to suffer, fam. I'm in the book, I say, and I'm just like, these prophets, we have to go through it. Yeah. Right. But they had a message for specific people at a specific time, for a unique occasion, for a specific purpose. And so with the work that you do in strategic communications, what do you feel God is stewarding that gift and talent for? Do you believe it's broadly to speak into kind of just the lives of people more broadly? Or is it that, I have to be strategic about how I think about communicating to this issue, right, that I actually feel called to? Where do you see God in your education right now? And what do you believe he's preparing you for?
Right now, I think that one, he's preparing me to be a global communicator, to understand people and to empathize with people, and then to use my understanding, my empathy to do what he's called me to do, which is be a symbol of hope, a voice of hope. And it's crazy because there's a Maverick City song, and I think it's called Jubilee. Yeah, I think it's Jubilee. And she says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. I'm anointed to bring hope." And when I heard that, and like I said, I'm still on this journey of understanding, because I feel it and I act in it, but really pinpointing and being able to write it clearly of what God is saying and what he's called me to do is ever changing. And so that moment I was like, wow, that's what it is. That's why I want to, that's why I want to use my story so much so that other people can embrace theirs, because the moment that you can embrace your story is the moment that you can see hope in your future. If you see that your story is your ending, you won't think that there's anything else coming after. You won't think that there's anything else better or more fruitful or breaking of a cycle than what you've seen so far. So in that, I would say that's like my short end to that question that you asked.
It's refreshing, right? To say that if it's not Omega, like, it's like it's like this is not the end, then you find hope in that. And so even in the space that you are creating, you have the passage of time and all these opportunities that you are stewarding, and that's open, right, for people to look and to interact and to give. And then there's this piece and kind of like this move in passion, move with passion, movement, Meraki. You have this space, where has God blown your mind in it even thus far, right? I know it's still, for all our work, it's nascent on this side of glory, right? But where have you seen God already because I think sometimes this perception is kind of like, I've been around church, and then I kind of like, I'm not really surprised anymore. People get used to it. You get almost desensitized to just the awe, the hallowed be thy name of God and what he's doing. But how has he shown you awe? And how have you had awe, and how have you been blown away in the sense that God has told you, keep going, like you're on the right path with this. And, I'm going to show you something that's going to make you know that I'm in this.
Yeah. So I would say one, moving Meraki, the word Meraki means to do everything with love, creativity, and soul. Heavy on the love. Like that is just heal in love, move in love, forgive in love, chase your dreams in love, like all of that. So that for me, this platform that I'm creating, this community that's being built right now before my eyes, it's a faith walk. And that's what I love, because it was like my antidote per se for my healing journey. It was like I was on a healing journey right when, the pandemic started and everything shut down. Before that, I was getting like 2 hours of sleep. I was trying to please everyone within my position. I was trying to make sure I graduated. So I was just on a hamster wheel of just like, I think I'm in my purpose. I'm just moving so quickly, but I'm not leaving space for God to speak to me and to give me grace. So after that, I began to heal. And the one thing that I realized is like, I had treated myself as a punching bag because I couldn't understand myself. I couldn't understand all the gifts that I had. I couldn't understand why me. I couldn't understand why the tragedy happened in my life. I just, like most of us. And so in that moment, I had to go to God. I was like, I don't understand myself. That feeling of control, there just was no control. And so I started to study. I started to read up on my word more and just get closer to God. And he was revealing to me like, hey, stop trying to understand yourself and put yourself in this box. Like that would be disrespectful to me. I created you and to be multifaceted. And so a part of moving Meraki is to, invest in those God-given gifts and to see them as a blessing, even if they come through tragedy, even if they come through the worst of our lives, like to understand that these things are gifts and they're beautiful and they can be used in such an impactful way. And so that's what God was doing in that moment in my healing journey. So with moving Meraki now, it's evolved in a way, but I know that a part of tapping into your gifts as humans is understanding, like, is there space for me, right? Is there anyone on this earth that I've seen do anything remotely close to that? And so that's why I've had women come on Mondays in a more tangible way on Mondays to speak about their stories, similar to this platform, to see like, okay, even if they're not doing exactly what I'm doing, that battle that they faced, I faced it too as a woman, and it's possible. It's possible to get past that so that I can begin to invest in my gift, because a lot of us don't tap into our full potential because of doubt, because of imposter syndrome, because of fear, because of trauma, just all of these things that just serve as a roadblock. And I think that I realized on my healing journey, like, it's okay to do both. It's okay to heal and be a head honcho. Like, it's okay to do those things simultaneously. And it doesn't make you any less of a woman, any less of a person if you have to do that. Like, I just think that that's what comes with it. So those are kind of the building blocks that led to moving Meraki. And in terms of him blowing my mind, he blew my mind by reviving me. Like, I thought that I was just done. I thought that I was not ever going to believe in myself again. I watched a sermon called Damaged Goods by Pastor Mike Todd. It's Transformation Church, which I watched faithfully. They're amazing. And that really brought me closer to God, because in that moment, I had been through so much and I had been going so fast that I just lost control and didn't even know who I was anymore. I'm like, wow, you spent like the last year trying to please people, trying to make sure that, you know, you were serving people correctly, trying to make sure that you were having a good time in college, trying to just make sure that your career was set, all of these things that you were trying to make sure of without consulting God, without his just leaning onto his grace for a little bit. And he got you there. And this was my exact sentiments in that moment. And at that moment, I was like, oh, I'm done. I was like, I'm done. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I don't even know who I am anymore. So I didn't think that there was any returning from that. So one, God blew my mind by saying, like, hey, sometimes if you break a box, right? If you break a sneaker box, the sneaker may not be damaged. The box, the container just might be damaged, but the sneaker itself is still valuable. And that's what Mike Todd said. And I was like, wow. One, I used to be a sneakerhead, so that really hit. But two, I was like, God's grace. I was like, he's not playing today to let me know that even through everything, even through the mistakes I thought I made that were just, you know, just childish or I couldn't come back from, he still revealed to me that, hey, I still have a purpose for you. I still have something amazing for you. And that was moving Meraki and building that and being able to, one, our first like kind of launch was me finding women of God and women that God just literally led me to. They weren't my closest friends. It was a handful of women. We had a conversation about everything under the sun, about healing, about being fatherless, about just being women of God, about our gifts and how we want to see them flourish, our wildest dreams. We had that conversation and that was a spark. And I was like, wow, I did this in one of the lowest moments. God is still good. He is still good. He's still in the business of restoration. And so from that moment, I actually declared, I don't know if you know this, but I declared that this is the year that he's going to blow my mind, because I realized that it's not him, you know, maybe pouring out all gifts. And I mean, like physical, like a house, a car, like he wants to heal my family and our generation. I wouldn't trade that for the world, because I know that there are some things that have happened, especially in the Black community, that it takes generations to break that curse. So he's blown my mind in doing so, because he said, hey, I still have you in this world. One, two, I have a great plan for you and purpose for you. And three, you can still do your gift is still there. It doesn't diminish because of your action. It doesn't diminish because of how low you think of yourself, or maybe a relationship you were in. Like, those things don't diminish because I gave it to you. Like, I gave it to you. And so that is just some of the ways that he's been able to blow my mind. And lastly, the impact that I've been able to make, just having 600 followers now, like, that is a big deal to me, because I'm like, 600 lives felt like I want to follow this page and be motivated and be inspired and be educated about how I can tap into my God-given gifts, how I can embrace the multifacetedness of myself. That is just mind-blowing to me, because at first I didn't think I could even lead myself, and to be leading a community like that, I'm very honored to do so. So God is just in the business of blowing our minds, literally, like Ephesians 3:20 says, he is in that business, and he's making it apparent to me every day. Wow, I have new creativity, despite, recent loss in my family. I thought that I was like, wow, I should be broken. But he gave me this idea of passing the baton. And I was like, okay, I'm going to act on it. I'm going to gather these opportunities for people. I'm going to find this, because God is still in the business of blowing my mind. And that means everything from, healing, restoration to, favoring his children like he does. So those are just some of the ways he's blown my mind. And I'm just looking forward to how he's going to continue to do it.
I know it's innumerable, and you were saying that God blowing your mind. It's like, God is just being God, right? And then if anything else, that it's like, man, these things got done because God got them done. He's the author. He's the finisher. We won't finish it. And so even in whatever state we are in, it was not by any merit that we've been saved or we've been this. And sometimes it's so hard for us we keep thinking that the Father wants our performance. And the Father just wants us. Broken or not, broken box, scuffed sneakers. He just wants it all.
Literally.
Sis, this is invigorating. I think it couldn't be no better place to kind of be, because I think people are feel that, and I think that's what draws people. And I say this, and I'm lifting this up a bit because this is so needed. There are people that are going to listen to you, and there are people who are listening to you that will listen to no one else. And what you're saying right now, I think this dynamic of when you don't know your purpose, you will try to seek it in everything else but God. You'll seek it in all these places that do not tell the proper story about you. Imagine if people really saw that when they see what we see outside, and people are shaking their head and saying that. And so I want to say this as encouragement. How could people kind of come alongside you, and how could they best connect with you in your work that you got going on?
Absolutely. I'm an open book, so I'm available on all social media platforms. And if you run into me on the street in New York and say hello, I will say hello. Yeah. But mostly on Instagram right now. So at Moving Meraki is my community and my baby, but it's more like a toddler. And it's a community where all are welcomed, all women. That's who we cater to. If you feel like you have gifts that you have yet, to tap into, or if you just are looking for some motivation to continue to be an amazing woman, literally follow us at Move and Meraki. We do all things with love, creativity, and soul. And on Instagram, you can find me at EK the Mogul, EKTHEMOGUL. And that is me. I'm also on LinkedIn at Erica Knox. So feel free to connect with me in any way. I also do social media management. So if you are looking to upscale your business and, improve that strategic communication, I've got you. I'm that girl.
Erica, we're grateful for you. I'm excited. You have a co-laborer in me as your brother, but I think many more people will be following the work that you do. So my sister, God bless you. Thank you for all that you do. And thank you for I'm thanking God for what's ahead for you. God bless you. Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you for having me. God bless you.